Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tool Square webinar of Navigating the Jungle of Machine Data. Nice to see some familiar faces, also some unfamiliar ones. Very nice. So at our previous event, we talked about ownership and how you can improve the operation of labs and workshops by hiring the accountability. So this year we chose a different subject, one that is emerging more and more, and it ties into Industry 4.0. Something quite some organizations are starting with, but often still searching how to. What's it about? How do I collect the right data? Then how do I process them? And how do I create the right insights? So as a first speaker, we invited Frederic Cornu, who has advised Engie for 12 years on optimizing building management. Afterwards, David, our co-founder, will talk you through data dashboards. Then we will have a panel discussion and a Q&A, questions and answers. So if you have a question already during the talk, please feel free to post it already. You can do this, in the slide please. You can do this by pushing the button with these geometrical icons on the bottom right of your screen and choose Q&A. So for something practical, might be in your screen more, give you a better view if you pin the speaker. First, it will be the speaker on the named David Truyens, and later on, during the panel discussion, it might be the speaker Manu. So now we go to the first speaker, Frederic Cornu. Frederic is a data expert and has a ton of experience in optimizing building management. So what's the link with equipment? It's all about collecting the right data to optimize occupancy rates and efficiency. So, Frederic, please.
Thank you. Yes. So my name is Frederic. I have a background in economics and in IT, and for the last 15 years I've been working in buildings, but mainly for buildings, to make them work for people and not the other way around. And by doing so, this is a subject we're going to discuss in my presentation. So when discussing with building owners and building users, the question that always I ask all of them: do you want to have a car or do you want to have a plane? And it seems a bit awkward comparison, but what is a car? A car is something that you have always at your disposal. It's in front of your house, in your parking spot, at the office. It's your car, it's your brand, it smells like you want it, that's what it does. But it's sitting there most of the time, 90% is just. And you have the cost of it, you have to maintain it, you have to, if it's broken, you have to take it to the garage. And you probably get a replacement that doesn't fit your 5 children, and so on and so on. The other way around is a plane. Plane is a very expensive device. It has highly experienced and qualified people working on it. It's on machinery. It has legislation. It's subsidized. It's a lot of things. And in order to make that economy work, it needs to be as efficient as possible. And so a lot of regulations, a lot of elements have put into place that if you take an airplane, these elements are shared. You're sitting next to with a carrier that's from Brussels. You're sitting somebody who bought a ticket via a Finnish company. Doesn't matter. The plane needs to be filled and needs to be as efficient as possible. Last Wednesday, I was at Schiphol. They are trying, for example, to get the time of the plane at the terminal to a minimum. And they're filming people working on the plane. They have face recognitions, they have object recognitions, and they they know at each time which phase the terminal time is, the terminal process of a plane to keep it as low as possible and to get alerts if, oh, this is 20 seconds overdue. So efficiency is key here to of course, for a building, it's a bit, do I change the slides? Yes. For a building, it's for material, it has the same aspects in it. Sometimes you get so to get that efficiency, it's not necessarily it's not the same thing as a plane. You don't want to have a building that's used for 90% of the time, everywhere in the building. There are examples that we could give that the parking is used by the neighborhoods, the catering is used in the weekends, the auditorium is used for festivals, cinema, or expositions or celebrations. But it's the kind of efficiency that we're looking for. And if we're gonna go through those elements, what we see is that if we go to engage in something like organizing, filling a plane and get it productive, you need the same engagement and the same mindset to do so. If everybody comes with another element in their head, then the building or the plane or whatever is not going to be a success. There's going to be a lot of conflict on it, and even if with the same mindset, if you don't set rules, it's in every household. If you don't set rules and boundaries, then it will not work either. The expectations and what people are people, and so if you don't give them the necessary guidelines, it will not work. Also, if the asset is something that is so particular, so specific that only a few people in the world, in a country, can use it, then also the flexible aspect can be sometimes useful as a backup to go cross-continent or cross-province. But it's an asset that to be easy usable. It has within a certain community at least, and then it's going to be useful. Also, to make that use for multiple people, the days of an Excel sheet or a paper at the door, it's booked by Maria and then to Jack. Okay, that's also a tooling, but we've passed that phase, and now we have to depend to grasp the complexity and the models of it with tooling, and we cannot live without them. And it's them that gonna support this acceleration in our journey of managing and helping us to do our jobs, the things that we as humans are better in than machines. But machines gonna help us. The key, and for me that's the key element in this, is if we're gonna share elements, if we're gonna work with assets that are not your own, we have to take away as much as uncertainty as possible. And uncertainty makes anxiety, makes people think it might be better to get a car, and then if maybe I'm done driving it, and a lot of questions, a lot of doubt, and that's the element that we need to take away, and that we can do by giving transparency, giving that the expectation of the quality is always there, that we're going to guarantee that your building, your material, your equipment is ready when you're there, and that there is a control on it, that it's guaranteed at every time. And if you put those elements together, it's all about data. It's how the controls are looking at the statistics of the machine, of the building, then treating them, structuring them, and putting there a layer of interpretation, so intelligence on it. And that's the journey that makes that elements, machines, buildings, planes, whatever, become an efficient element when shared amongst multiple people. So, yeah, how does the flow work? We don't have it. and that's not a long time ago, let's say 10 years ago, we still did buildings, architects, sorry, still made buildings pure on gut feeling. We think it's like this without supporting it by any data, any studies, consolidation on how people will react in certain areas, concentration, and so on. That's not lying along ago. So data is necessary. We have to capture it. It's not a gut feeling element. Huh? And if we have it, data is everywhere. You can sit in a room. You can start writing the different colors. You can. It's all around us. So if you start capturing it, then you need to bring structure in. To bring the elements together. What is an element? What is a meeting room? What is a gang hallway? A restaurant? What do people want? Which services and so on? So those data you need to figure out what structure does work for your environment and for your building in my case. And over the years, as an engineer, as an economic, we love data, we love numbers, but it doesn't talk to us. You can show an Excel and that's just some numbers. If you want to understand it, to see it, to discuss it, then it's necessary to visualize it, to tune it. Then you can start working with it. But that's not the last step, of course, and that because a lot of people stop there, especially in my domain. We have the data, it's dashboarded, it's shown in presentations and board meetings, but we don't do anything. It's nice to have, it's a visualization and then so that the point here is that the data is there to help us and to teach us lessons for a future and better use of the assets. So that's also the journey that the data itself goes through. We're in the daily work of something that somebody that's maintaining it. He's in the cockpit. It's on a flight tower. He can be fireman sometimes, but he's overviewing all operations. He's seeing what's happening now, what's going to happen in the near future. I have visitors coming in. I have people that need in servicing. It might be the Zumba lesson at the lunch. It can be a lot of elements, but he's interacting with the environment and needs to be there. And it has its dashboard, its live view on that. To go to manage it, and to see what happened to it, what can be, say, invoiced, what can be improved, how many tickets are there, how many complaints or what do you call it? Congratulations, thank you for the service. That's rare, but we have to track all the data and see, okay, what happened in the past, how can we work on that, how can we achieve a better rating for ourselves, but also for the people using it and also the owners of it. Because and with that data, without that data, we cannot learn any lessons. And with these lessons comes the next package. It's what we're going to do with the data and how we're going to project it into the future. So we're going to start modeling. Modeling, fancy word, but it goes to that. We see that on a Tuesday, on a Thursday, we have a lot of people. On a rainy day, people don't go out. They eat a sandwich in the building. On the Friday afternoon, it's not worth heating the building because everybody's out at 2. These are kind of patterns that you're going to see that's going to work and that can help you to be more efficient and also nudge or influence people that the resource that is going at an efficiency rate of, let's say, 60%. If we nudge them, we can give incentives to use those assets in a different timing, in a different way, in a different setting, and that brings your efficiency and a satisfaction rate to a higher level. So what do you want to achieve is it's not the data itself. Some people like that, the data itself and just having it, but we need to think about the element. And one of those issues that we have a lot of times in different buildings. For example, we want to be more efficient in cleaning the bathrooms, the hallways, and so ever. So we put a sensor on every door, so we know that what the frequency is in the toilets, and so on and so on. But mainly, the toilets, unless the floor has been closed, they need to be checked anyway. It's even legal. So it doesn't. But what's the actual gain that we could have? And that's the thing, the insight and the mindset you would have. What is really happening? Okay, we want to gain time, so we put a sensor not on the door, but we put a sensor on the soap to see if the cleaning personnel needs to open the small box, see if the soap is still enough, or the width of the paper roll. We can censor that so that it doesn't have to open it. So that's efficiency for people, efficiency for the user because he knows that the soap is going to be in, and satisfaction for the owners because that building has a good rating for hygiene and neatness, and probably it's going to be less expensive because it's optimized. And so in order to do that, to get those insights, it's a matter of getting those all those people together. It's not the landlord going to find out that a cleaning lady is checking the 50 paper rolls and it's going to take her 2 hours a day. So that's by putting people together, and it's all and to get that data in, and that's part of the capturing. It's the logs, it's everywhere that we can check them. It's talking to those, getting the reservations, getting the data from the building management system, from the network, from the energy metering. Those elements, they're all helpful, and it's not that it needs to be a fancy one. When we do, and that's the example also given. It's if we work out what is the capacity needed for certain populations, we still send students to the floor 5 times a day with an iPad now, not with just a billboard, and they just they put on so many people in the meeting room, so many in the hubble, so many people on an open desk and a closed desk, and this is the information that we use to take away the gut feeling. So it can be low level, it can be high level, but we need to capture it, and it needs to make it be objective. But then the real element, and this is the most heavy one, it's what data do we actually have? And if the data is there, we know that the data is there. Can we get to it? Is it accessible? Is it not too much? Meaning, does it conflict with privacy and security regulations? Could be very handy to know that somebody has a certain disease for prevention reasons, but it's not the way we want the society to be organized. So these are elements that we need to gather, and most of the times they're spread all over. They're in multiple systems, like the list that was given before. So getting those data together is tough, and maybe it's getting too tough, too complex, and then it's okay. Let's say you step back and see what we already have, what can be used. Is it suitable for the purpose? We have, for example, a building. We said, okay, we want to know the how many people that come in out the building, and we want to be so accurate that we could say that at the door, that if everybody's out, that we put on we alarm the building, and it's on lockdown, so we don't have a guard coming in. Those meters are very efficient. They're 99.4% accurate, but it's that 0.6% that puts the alarm on and that you have to send in the police and so on and so on. So the purpose was, we're going to count, that's fine, and it's very accurate, and it's accurate to see flows of people, but it's not accurate enough to say that, okay, we put on the alarm and we go home. And so that it's different in the data is different, and the reason and the purpose when you're going to use data, it's very important, and guiding for what you're going to place or you're going to use as also, and that's something that we forgot often in the past is it's to control and the correctness of the device. It might be a device that is at 60% accuracy, and that we know, but how to correct if it's still measuring. We know that if we initiate a building, about 40 to 60% of every valve is actually from the beginning malfunctioning because it's put in a hasty manner, it's not correct. And so by checking it, by testing it, then we can have the data and we can correct it before any people go into the. We're coming almost to the end. So data and data sets and visualization and so on, it's specific to a population. It's if you're going to communicate to an end user, he needs to have a clear view of what he can reserve. If it's a plain seat or it's a machine or it's a desk or a meeting room, he needs to have a clear view. It doesn't need to be at a table. It can be a clear, nice agenda view that he can have. But it's different for an operator that needs to see all the visitors and so on. So you see that the different elements, different stakeholders, they have different needs. And if you're going to report to them, it's going to be in a different manner. It's the same data, but represented differently. And if it's going to be the data sets, they might be the same, but also the interpretation can be different. And the occupancy of 90% would be very good for an owner, but for the people in that, if the area is small, can be very pressuring, can be annoying. So this can be different dashboard and give the different visualization that can be used. Yeah, that's it for me, my end. So, but the key element is to get away from the gut feeling, to see what do we have, what do people know, what do they been doing all the time that reflect with them. Go through the elements around you to the biosphere, what's there out to grasp. It's low-hanging fruits in the beginning, and to see if I'm going to measure it, why am I measuring? What do I want to achieve with it? The efficiency of the building is one. It's maybe the less failure of the building, of the machine. It can be more engaged people, that they're willing to participate because they're felt that they're heard. What are you doing? So that's all interaction, and that helps. And of course, for who you're dealing with this data is key. The last element that I mentioned was about a lot of people do dashboarding and then it stops. And this is because of the rest is a hard part. We can put in it could be put in a sensor. You're measuring it, but if you cannot adapt the valves, why measure it? Or why even bother to do it if you cannot change the surroundings? So if you go into the data, make sure that you act on it, try, test it, have some failures, and if you're confident and see the needs and the gaps, then expand, and then gradually you will get there where you want to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frederic, for all these insights. So next is David. He's CTO of ToolSquare. He's the ID generator at ToolSquare, one of the co-founders. He's in close contact with clients, but in, I think, even closer contact with technology. So he's the right person to talk you through data. David. And so if there are any questions, please put them in the Q&A. Huh?
All right. So thank you, Jo, for the introduction. So at ToolSquare, so thanks again, Frederic, for the presentation. And I think some people could wonder to have your lab run as an airport with a lot of data, a lot of efficiency, trying to reach the next percentage might sound very far from your real world. I think a lot of labs run quite organically. Well, there's a big difference between our customers, but I think we can help them to take the advantages of measuring all these things. So, and that's our goal, is to run your lab worry-free. And therefore, we have a couple of things where we focus on. And last time was funny because it was a pilot talking about just culture. So where the users of your lab never, or in an airport, not punish the people who were a bit late, but questioning why did it happen that this person was 2 times as long than the other person. Maybe he needs another training, maybe the instructions were not right, but it's not always pointing your finger at the person. So I think that was very important. Last webinar we did. Create a safe environment. So a safe environment is where people can, well, because we do access control, we know who is allowed to work with the machine, and therefore you can open the doors and not worry that somebody who has never worked with the panel saw will chop off his fingers. Yeah, and but those were the other times. So today we'd like to focus on easy administration and powerful insights of what we have seen in the labs. So to start, I would like to show a couple of challenges. So how does it work now? So on the top left, you see a logbook. We still see quite a lot of paper logbooks out in the field. Of course, it's what are you going to do with the data in the logbook? Because yeah, you have to type it over if you want to really do something with it. And people also have to fill it in. And if you're very busy, and that's also, again, the procedures, if you're busy and you forget to fill it in, well, it's not going to happen. Then invoicing, it's also for a lot of customers, it's quite a big challenge. And then we have the equipment with the out of order sign. You can ask yourself, how long did it take to put on the out of order sign on top of the machine? Maybe it was already a week dead before somebody put the sticker on top of it. And then the messy part with all the hand gloves and stuff, that's an image for inventory management. It's also quite a challenge in a lot of labs. How many, are there still enough gloves? Sometimes we have environments where you have biohazards labs or even radioactive stuff. Well, if you don't have gloves, you cannot do anything. So even just a simple box of gloves could stop the whole work in your lab. And then we also see scheduling, which is also quite a challenge. And then the last one is, what about old machines? Is it still necessary? We see some customers doing crazy things with old machines, and they are convinced that the old machines were the best ones, and they still keep it up and running because they still get really good results. But other machines, well, they might not be that valid anymore. So with the data, we can easily see which machines can you replace, should be replaced, or are not necessary anymore, because space is always an issue in buildings, but certainly definitely in labs. Okay, so how can we solve all these challenges? Well, there's one common theme in all of them, and that's lack of data. If we get some more data, we can really address all those challenges. So to get started, I would like to show a movie on what we actually do, because I think not everybody really knows what's going on. So here we see our unit connected to a very little machine, and we batch in. So people who've not accessed, they will not be able to work with the machine. You also see the reservation. We also ask what is the status of the machine, and then you just saw a checklist. And a checklist that could be for safety procedures, but now we also change it into something else, which I talked about. So you also saw the smileys, which are very similar from what you see in buildings, in toilets, and all these kind of things. So Not a fan. Not a
In
fan.
the toilet, eh? The toilet.
In the toilet. Okay. But I think it's the interesting thing. I really like cross innovation. You better steal something from another industry than trying to badly invent it yourself. So I think a lot of industries like buildings, like airports, like manufacturing, like in an automotive construction line, they do a lot of things, and I think we can learn a lot from these environments to improve the efficiency of labs. All right, so gather data. So what we do, or the kind of data we gather, is identification. So who works on which machine at which time, and then we have our checklists. And then the checklists is actually we can use it for safety things, but now and that we recently launched, like this week, is we can use it to capture data, and it could be very simple, like what kind of project are you working on, and then via the checklist you can add it, and then it becomes a full logbook. So everything you can do with the logbook, we can now also do with checklist, and then we automatically get the data to our servers, and then we can use it later on. Runtime, how long is the machine actually running? Issue reporting, so if you're not happy with the green phase, we immediately report an issue to the people who are responsible, but we encourage people to do that, and we thank them for reporting an issue and ask them for more information. So the real-time status of machines. So we know if a machine is available to use, if it's unlocked, if it's running, or if it's out of order, or any kind of these things. And then energy monitoring. So what we do as ToolSquare, we do two things. We make sure people cannot use equipment, so they have to log in. And on the other hand, we try to see if a machine is running. And we do that a lot with current monitoring. So we have a lot of data on the energy usage. And that's also a big demand now. I also heard Frederic talking about shutting down a building earlier and nudging people to not. I heard the story of somebody coming at work at 5 o'clock because he likes to work early, and then suddenly the whole building needs to be up and running, and the air conditioning starts on, this kind of things, which actually makes these hours very, very expensive. And with the energy crises which we had last year, those things are become more obvious to focus on. So that's the things we all do via our unit, and then we also have the platform. And in the platform, the unit creates an issue, but then you go to the platform to write down what the actual issues were, and then we also do bookings. So to show you a bit about our platform, so we have been working quite hard the last well, for a long time, but we have released a lot of things now. So on the equipment listing, you see the orange explanation marks, and which means that there's an issue with the equipment. So everybody can see there's an issue. So it's a nudging for lab managers to keep everything tidy. But it's also if you want to book an equipment, you can easily see there's a problem with this machine. Maybe I first have to check the problem, because sometimes it's possible that a machine can do one thing but not another thing. So you're immediately aware of all these kind of things. On the bottom there, you see our booking, and what makes us a bit special is that people can, of course, book a machine, but we also know how it has been used. So here you see a nice example of gray is the actual booking, but the blue one is how the machine actually ran. And in this case, the person used his time quite okay. But sometimes it's hard to know how long you need actually to book a machine. And via this visual feedback, you can also see if you actually used your reservation well. And people will learn from that. If they always overrun, maybe you have to make your reservation longer, or vice versa. You also see the red blocks on the reservation. That's also a question from a customer of us, and it's again about energy efficiency, because they turn down the ventilation in the chemical lab after 8 o'clock, I think. So after 8 o'clock, it's not allowed anymore to use this equipment because that could be dangerous. Yeah, so that's also something we support now in our platform, and I'm very happy with that. And then, of course, we have our issue reporting, and we have our jobs, which also come in, and each job you can also add your feedback. Okay, so that's what we do in our platform, and then we also have a lot of dashboards, and all these dashboards were built together with our customers because they had some need for certain data. So some of them could be very important for some customers and maybe less important for others, but we always give all the insights for each customer. So these are the run hours for each machine, and we divide them into user groups. So if you're a research center, you usually have different research groups. If you're education, you usually have different departments like architecture or like interior design and these kind of things. So this is an extra some more insights. Of course, we have the occupancy rates of equipment. And there you see a huge difference in each lab. You have machines which are used really a lot and others not so much. That doesn't mean they have to disappear, because sometimes they're very critical, but you actually only need them once a week. But it's important to at least get the data to make correct decisions. This one is a usage per user group. So this is very interesting if you share your equipment, and I think this is becoming more and more obvious that you cannot have your equipment sitting somewhere in your office only used by 1 or 2 people. But if you can see how the equipment was shared among the users, it makes it easier to share maintenance costs, for example, because that's also always a big question. Like, okay, if you don't have data, how are you going to share all these costs? And you can say everybody pays an equal amount, but that's usually you will get very bad reactions because it's never matches reality. Okay, and then we have this graph, which is how we see the machines. We call this or at least I call it the 24/7 graph. So we can see the which days are popular, and again here you can see that there's activity in the weekends. So you could nudge people and say, okay, maybe we're not gonna allow it on Sunday anymore. Because it just costs a lot of energy to keep the whole building running. And then also we see the activities during the day. So this is also a graph which you can use to decide on which time you have to shut down the building. But it's also used in another way, and that this was in a laboratory somewhere in Antwerp, where they have a critical machine, but they used it. They kind of knew they were using it in a wrong way, but they prepared the samples in the morning and did their analysis in the afternoon. But they never really thought about it. But once they saw the graphs, it was very visual that, okay, we only use it in the afternoon. They never thought so much about it, but when it becomes visual, they said, well, this is actually a critical machine, and we could easily double the output of the machine just by having another procedure, and maybe doing also sample preparation in the afternoon and put them in the freezer, and then the next morning you can start immediately with using the machine, and then you can easily increase the efficiency. All right, and then this one I'm quite proud of. So this is our first implementation of questions asked in the checklists. So we have two, for now we have two things which automatically go to the dashboard. So that's a resource, and on the other hand, it's a scope. So resource could be anything from which material are you using. We have a very good example of a distillation column. And in the distillation column, you use a kind of solvent, and the bowl should be cleared after usage. But sometimes it's forgotten because the machine is running autonomously. And then it becomes very critical. Okay, what's inside this bowl? How do I have to dispose it? Is it organic material? Is it just water, or is it alcohol, or all these kind of things that could be really important for safety reasons, for waste reasons. So we can really simply ask, what kind of resource are you using? Sometimes it could be even a person. So we have in Delft, we have an organization, and you need a crane operator. So yes, I need a crane operator for this test. And on the other hand, we have a project or scope, and a scope is a bit more broad than a project. So we can ask, like, is this for an internal project or an external project, all this kind of thing. So we can immediately visualize what's going on, and you can use this data directly for invoicing, for example. All right, and then the last thing we're working on, so this is a kind of a mock-up, but this is about energy monitoring, which we are going to launch quite soon. But I think one of the things we try to focus at is making things easy, because especially energy monitoring, you usually look at these graphs in real time and you see, okay, at this minute there was such amount of energy, but actually nobody cares, right? It's fun for the first time if you have bought solar panels on top of your house. The first week you look at the app continuously and say, whoa, I'm making energy, but after a week you couldn't care less. So I think it's important, how can this help your lab to be more efficient? And one of the things I think is important is your base load. So in the weekends, if the machines are not used enough, we can see, okay, this is actually the base load, and you could set it as a target. So after 8 o'clock, you would like to go to your base load to not waste too much energy. I think maybe Frederic can comment on that later as well. All right, but same thing as Frederic mentioned, gathering data is one thing, visualizing data is another thing, and then the last thing is taking actions on data, which is also very critical. And therefore, I think integrations are very important, and something we didn't talk about too much is the end users. And I think it's also very important, and we'll talk about that later, because in the end, you have to keep the end users in mind. So you have to make things easier. So you have to make integrations with all existing platforms that are already out there. But then, of course, tools like Zapier makes it really things where you can take action. So one of the things we're working on is if you have a bottle of a certain gas and the pressure drops below a certain value, well, we will need to order another bottle. So those are actions which we actually can trigger. And also for invoicing, I know people spend a lot of time parsing all the usage of the machines and put them into their different invoicing systems. So I think we can help with that as well. All right, and with that, I like to hand over. Yeah, one more slide. So yeah, as Tool Square, we'd like to help you getting through the jungle. And I think this is a journey we go together with. We have a lot about knowledge about technology, what we can do with all the data. But of course, we need you, people in the lab, to understand where we are going through together. Okay, with that said, back to you.
Thank you, David. So now we move to the panel discussion. Okay. So we have a slightly different composition of the panel as planned. One person he was ill. He should have presented insights. One person has illness at home, so he will be joining us virtually. Welcome.
Yes, but I can hear you very well. Good morning.
We have here Stijn Heirbaut. Stijn is head of Department of Workshops and Loan Services of the LUCA School of Arts. So, Stijn, I liked very much your description on LinkedIn, fascinated by the interaction between organizational structures, processes, and digitalization. I think that's more or less the reason you are here.
Okay.
We asked you, because already years ago you had contacted us to try to find a connectivity solution for all your equipment, which is, especially at the times, quite exceptional. So this is something, obviously, you are very much...
Take the mic.
You are very much thinking about. Welcome, Stijn. Then Rein. Rein.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rein. You are CEO of Kapernikov,
Yes.
improving workers' lives with vision AI, I learned. With real-time data collected from your technical installations, you can guide people's or organizations' operations towards efficiency and productivity by using AI. Is that a good description?
Yeah, I think you did that pretty well. We help our industrial customers with AI to make safer, healthier, less waste-producing industrial processes.
Okay. Welcome. I think that could be very valuable because that could be a next step in processing data. Yeah. And then there is David and Frederic, who you already know. So, panel members, I have some questions for you. If that's okay, Stijn, I would like to start with you.
Okay, no problem.
So, as a department manager, what data are you using today and what data are you hoping to use in the future?
Okay, actually, it's if we look at our data today, we're in our school, 5 locations around the country. We have 2 very main data sets, which are actually very important. The first one is our student database. Our student database are actually the users, yeah, but that's a closed database. It's a data set that we are not the owner of it as a department, as a technical department. It's not our data. It's the data from the administration. It's the data from the SAP flows. It's the data from. It's not our data, but actually it's a very important data set for us because on that base we know who is standing in front of us. So that's very important. The second data set is one that we own ourselves as a department. That's the database. So we have more than 30,000 assets in our rental stores around the country, and that's the data set we own. That's from us. We manage it, we maintain it, we catalog it, we are actually the owner of it. That are the 2 very important data sets. And then we have some secondary data sets, like selling reports from our cases. We have some reservation tools. We have some not very accurate data sets. And we were looking very much to enhance the data sets, to make it more complete, to make it more current to each other, and make a combination with the 2 main data sets. And that's our driven and our thinking about data. That's what we want to do. We want to combine the secondary data sets with the primary data sets, even if we are not the owner of the primary data set. And that's our goal in our department and our thinking about data.
Okay. What are you hoping then to get from making these steps?
We are working with students.
Mm-hmm.
And students and our department, we manage all the technical equipment for the students. We need to help the students. We need to help the students and the lab managers, because we are always in our department working with students who have to learn to work with the machines. So the lab managers are very crucial in all that process. without our lab managers, we don't have a lab, we don't have a school, we don't have an educational part on the side. And that's different with the building management system, I guess. If you manage a building, you need to drive to efficiency, energy management, and so on. If you don't want to buy a lot of parking spaces if you don't need it, but if you want to, if you're working with students, you need to learn the students something, and we need that data to enhance, to help the students, to help the lab managers. And the secondary goal is to manage it, not the primary goal. Primary goal is to help the students and the lab managers.
But it's the same for, I think, it's true. It's not completely the same with you have a working population and coming in and doing their actual job, but it's similar. It's not. It's less tangible because it's knowledge. But the most expensive thing of a building are the people. So the building is there to help the people, and the people are not in there because it's there. It needs to work for them. And so if people come to work or come to learn a specific skill, every all step from standing up in the morning until finishing the job, making the study work, or doing your job, it's the same thing. You need to get the value and the satisfaction, the willingness to come, the engagement, that everything is working as it should. And that's I think that's the same thing between students, labs, or buildings. For me, that's because it's our time is the most expensive thing.
Well, completely.
Okay, thank you. So, Frederic, you come from building management, but now in the last days, weeks, you've learned a bit more about labs, workshops, and equipment. From your point of view, and maybe the limited knowledge you have, but you have great experience, where do you think are the biggest wins in equipment management if you look at data capturing, processing, and visualization?
Well, I've seen it's the same thing to labs to know when I can I use it. What is the best way to use it? The whole guidance, the educational part, because if you break it for a lot of people. That's I think that's critical for as a user. I would hate to go into and start my flow, and I start a machine and I see, and at the end, my finishing touch, it's out of order, or it's just not functioning as I should. So the guaranteeing the whole process would be for me one of the essential things. Because that's what started with uncertainty. I want to make sure that if I put my time in it and my probably money in resources and in commodities, that's that guarantee and that flow. That's I think it is an essential one. And the other one was what I'm thinking is how much sharing is possible. If you have investments in what I've heard in universities, in high schools, and the equipment is something that's it's bought. How to get the knowledge cross departments, that is becoming a community, that you can share a platform on which to say, okay, I need today, it's Monday, okay, I have to go to campus in Ghent because it's free, it's available, I can use it, and there is a professor that's is a knowledge people on that subject, and so on, that you can see that the view, because it's not necessary to have in hospitals. It's probably the same. They don't need every equipment in every hospital, not every equipment in every lab. You can share it, and that means that the costs per person will drop. And that's more efficiency. That's my economical background then, to make that thing work. And at last is if people are open for it, as people are the most expensive thing, why not use the hours to spread it more, depending on the weekends, depending on the evenings. and nudge people to use those assets. It's 10. You saw the graphs, and you're probably at 40% or maximum of use. There's a lot of potential there. And people say, "Oh, I cannot finish my end work," or I don't know. But it's there, and visualize it, and have a community of those tools. If it's even cross city, it's not big Belgium or Flanders. So I think those are key elements for that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's indeed very interesting. I especially like the thing you said about there should be a platform that makes it possible to choose your equipment. Okay, in the moment you need one, where can I find it? So on, because this should be the enabler for this whole process. And effectively, this is something that at Tool Square we are working towards. Today we're working as a solution mostly in a lab workshop or production hall, but in the future it should grow and enable this kind of efficiency, availability.
And probably also knowledge sharing. Huh?
Absolutely, especially in schools.
Because I've learned this and that on the machine. If you apply it in that way, it's more efficient. It's better. The runtime is less. I don't know. I'm not a lab or in arts. I think for visual effects and so on, I think it would be also a learning platform sharing.
I think the availability, the knowledge, and so on, it's very important, and you need to plan it and so on. That's very obviously. You need to optimize the time, the usage time, and so on. But there's something very interesting about it, and that's also already started to develop in the European Union. That's the micro credential. That's actually the open platform that the European Union says to every higher education, every university, develop something where you can teach a skill and say to the world, "I know this machine."
Mm-hmm.
If we can admit a micro credential to a student, I can work with a laser cutter. It's a very micro credential. Actually, it's very specific. It's very limited. You can handle this machine. If you publish this on your LinkedIn, on your Google account, on the world, then in every lab, everybody can see he can work with a laser cutter. Okay, I can guarantee that he can freely work on that machine. And that's something that we need to develop in our school, because we are 5 departments across Belgium, but actually we have 3 Fab Labs across the country. But all the students that are working in Ghent don't work necessarily in Brussels. So the lab man, but if there is a micro credential developed by Ghent, the student can come to Brussels and can say, "I can handle this machine. You can, it's safe for me to use it." And that's very important. It's even more in education. The open budget system, and it's known.
Yeah, I think we see already examples of this. So we have students from Leuven studying architecture, for example. And if they need to make their mock-ups, sometimes they live in Antwerp, and we know that they are going to the Fab Lab of the KDG, for example. And then we can tag them and say, "Okay, these are customers from KU Leuven doing something at the KDG." And I think this is really nice. And another example, which I think is the typical, with the cliche, the typical nerd. So you have somebody, some young people, they can buy a printer very easily, and it's a passion for them, and they know more about 3D printing than the professors. And because they're very introvert, they're not making too much noise about it, but in the data, they will pop up, and we can see, okay, these are the champions. So if you have some specific question about this machine, don't go to the professor. He will help you with the general approach. But for some specific things, maybe a student is better than a professor. And I think this is happening quite a lot with technology changing so fast. All right.
Same counts for labs and production manufacturing environments. Okay.
The high-end users, actually.
The high-end skilled.
the micro-credential version 2.
Okay, thank you. Now, Rein, I have a question for you now. You, as an expert in AI, where do you think AI could help in the operation of labs and workshops?
Well, I can see three main use cases here. Although I like the smileys that we've seen earlier on, certainly if we can use them in hygienic conditions like a lab.
You have gloves. Right?
You have gloves, yeah, so that's completely okay. I do think there's an obvious case for condition monitoring using AI. There's often the sound that you what? And there's the sound that the machine makes. There's the vibration that comes from the machine. There's the temperature. And you could use sensors to gather all these. Maybe the machines output these data already, and you can use AI to see if the machine is actually still in a good condition or needs maintenance in the short range. A second use case, which we actually also see in industry, is that you enforce safety measures by camera images. A camera can see whether you're wearing protective glasses, whether there's nobody in a forbidden zone for a certain machine. And lastly, we've seen in the last year the advent of large language models. And you can already, it's only been a year, but if you see how good they are already and how many companies are using them actively already, I think that the art of troubleshooting, of looking up documentation on a specific machine in a specific situation, that will definitely be something that will go to conversational AI, where you can say the machine, hey, I need to do this and this, and that you get a reasonable answer from the machine, or maybe an advice to use another machine to this end, rather than the more search-based approach that we take today. Same thing, I've seen some comments in work orders from machines. I think most of these free text comments today actually go to waste, and nobody really reads those. There's no real analysis on free text comments. It's not doable to show them in graphs. But obviously, if you can push them through large language models, you can ask a machine to summarize them, to give you statistics, to warn you when there's actually a comment that you should have seen and that you should act upon. So yeah, I can see quite some applications for AI in the fairly short future.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Thank you very much. Now a question for David. So, from your observation in labs, what do you see people doing well? What do you see people doing well, and where do you think people can improve operations, especially when it comes to data?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of feeling that things should be shared more. I think in the past, a professor bought a machine and it was his machine. That's not even allowed anymore because of European rules. And we see a clear shift towards core facilities, so where machines are shared more often. And so I think this is a very trend, but it needs to be managed. If you share equipment without control, it's a recipe for disaster. And yeah, I think we're very happy that we can play a role in this, because that's already something we have heard a couple of times. Like, there's not a hair on my head. Is that English actually? That would think of sharing a machine if it wasn't controlled via our platform. So I think that's going good. Challenges, I think, what labs are now struggling with, and we see some initiatives now, is energy management, and there's not much insight as far as we know, and if we also talk to facilities now, and they know how much power is going out of the big transformer, and that's it. Where it is going, they don't have a clue. So I think we can easily help them with that. Yeah, so those are the things which are on top of my mind.
Okay, thank you, David. Another question for Stan then. Well, the environment you're in, I think it is differentiated also by the amount of equipment you have. You told me before how many pieces or how many assets do you exactly have?
Well, in the rental department, we have almost 30,000 assets.
Yeah, and they're very diverse. I heard you even have like 140 pianos, and and
it's very wide. It's actually for textile students, sewing machines, to high-end 8K cameras for the movie department. So it's quite broad.
Yeah. For these consistent amounts of equipment, does this give you specific challenges, and how do you deal with them?
I think the management of the machines isn't so hard if there's no user.
Okay. Platform is perfect. Don't use it.
We don't have to manage the machines. That's secondary. We have to manage the users, and we need to and that's what I told about the micro credential is actually of the permit to work with a machine, even if it's in a sewing machine or if it's a ceramic studio. You need to know how to handle it, and that's actually more important than to manage a machine. The machine, okay, it costs some money, and you need to maintain it, and it will be broken, and you have to fix it. But for that part, we have some lab managers. They will do that. But we have to manage all the users also, and that's actually very important. I think even it's more important to manage the users and the user groups on a very efficient way than the units itself.
Do you have any lessons learned for us on how to manage users then?
How to manage students? How to manage students? I think it's hard to manage students. I can tell you.
Yeah, I believe you.
In our school, we have a very basic rule. Everybody and every student can work in every lab on every location. That's the main goal, but we are not always aware of it. So if we can admit a student from ceramics working in a movie studio or a film studio, it's possible, but we have to learn it, and the learning part is a crucial part. If I am a textile student and I want to work with a camera, I need to handle the camera. Very simple. And the lab manager will say if I can do it or not. And he will suggest to me that you better take the low profile camera. Also, your tutor said that it was something different. No, we will handle it for you. So we have to give some actually easier
guidance.
Yeah, some guidance in it. How to do it? Maybe should ask the lab manager himself. Step by step. I'm not a teacher.
No, and it's good to know your role and your expertise. Okay, thank you, Stan. Frederic, another question, and it continues on what we were talking about earlier on. In essence, it's about users. So, with all this gathering of data, what do you have any examples of what it brings to the users?
Time. It's always an. It's your time, and we're more in an since Corona accelerated it. We can do almost besides in a lab. We can work. We can piano on the computer from any location. But if we make an effort to go a place, that's to be humans, to interact, to work, to speak, to have a lunch together, to have a coffee break, and then AI comes in there. We see it more and more that it's not an individual coming to work; it's a team. It's a department. It's a group of people, agile squads, whatever. But they come together, and the data can help them to come to the office to say, okay, it's like in when you buy online, you bought this, you may be liking this, but now you know that your favorite person is going to work, your team is going to work. Now it's worth to go there. There were traffic jams out there. The weather is. So you can all this data. There's metadata. It's everywhere. You can decide in your bed, on your phone, probably some elements, but data is going to help you more, and AI can definitely help in that. Because if we do something, we want to take away the uncertainty. We want to be there in the office, not sitting next to each other with a headset having Teams meetings. We want to be in the office, sitting together and working together. That otherwise we should have stayed at home.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
and that's
good answer, thank you.
actually, and that's what in collaboration elements.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And Rein, then one more question for you. Do you think now we were talking about what data brings to the user? If you go from the user to the technology, what do you think, based on the output data, that you could define what type of operator was active, and that you could work more on profiles of users and make optimizations from there on?
Well, I think a lot of this has been touched upon already. David earlier on brought the example of the introvert nerd who's actually your expert user.
Yes.
No doubt that's the kind of information that you could mine from your data, and that could be actually very valuable. I'm not thinking too much in very long-term future scenarios here. I think this is all very doable. I think also the obvious things that you also showed already, who is always overbooking and underusing. These are probably also a type of user that you should manage. Who's always doing last-minute bookings? This kind of users. This is obviously not rocket science, but there's
No.
probably a lot of optimization that can be done with very. I mean, as much as I like to make promotion for AI, I think a lot of graphs and easy statistics can go a long way here.
Yeah, sure.
But then this kind of cases is what to do about it. A late booker or somebody the no shows. Is it still the no shows or the people that?
Yeah, well, a late booker is maybe not necessarily a problem. Actually, that's just somebody filling in a slot that has not been used. A no show, on the other hand, is definitely a problem.
And that's these elements that comes to the agreements, the rules, the house rules that you're gonna set in a lab. What is acceptable, what's not acceptable. Those are as important as the data. What to do about it? Oh, we see it. He's always coming in, or he's not coming in. He's just reserving the machine in case he has something. So that's people are scared of the lack of the resources, so they're gonna book. Yeah, it's like a meeting when we're gonna book in advance. But you have to take that away and educate people. It's not necessary to be afraid. to do it, but or cancel. But you need to edit. It's an educational part of that.
Yeah, that's like with
That's essential, I think.
with any resource. When you get the feeling of scarcity, think about the toilet paper during Corona. Well,
Yeah.
you actually get scarcity because
that's
people are going to over provision.
Yeah.
Which is actually something you can act upon.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Rein. So my last question, please, David, for you. What does the future hold, do you think?
Oh, boy, that's a big question.
How do you see equipment management evolve in 5 to 10 years' time? I know it's a very broad question, but I'm very curious on your view upon it.
I think there used to be a proverb like the things that technology can do on a short term is overrated, and on a long term it's underrated. But I'm not sure if that's true anymore, because I think things are changing so fast that I think we underestimate what things can do on a short term even. So we started actually as a platform for lab managers mostly, and we're now shifting that a lot towards the end user. In the past, end users only did an issue reporting, but now it's doing bookings and stuff. And I think with some small AI, but Rein is probably going to correct me and said, yeah, you can do that with the simple rules. But I think helping if you're in a lab, you would like to do your research and you need maybe 5 pieces of equipment and you want to make sure that they're available, because sometimes if you take something out of the freezer, you only have a couple of hours to do the whole processing, and you want to make sure that the ultracentrifuge, which you need somewhere in the middle, that it's available and it's not broken down. So I think you could imagine something like, hey Siri, plan me my whole process, and it finds the optimal machines, and it knows from previous actions how long it took you to do all these kind of things. So it knows like, okay, we probably need 45 minutes for this machine and only 10 minutes instead of the 3/4 you always booked. So with an assistant of all these bookings, I think that could be very helpful, and it will make life a lot easier, because why do people plan things late? And I don't have to look far. I can just look at myself, and I know you have a lot of things on your mind. So I think if you can help people with these kind of simple tasks, because usually it's the most stupid task which gets delayed the most. But sometimes you say, okay, next week I have to do this. Okay, I'm already going to ask to do my bookings. Yeah, and then the other thing is integrations. I think that's very important, that everything becomes very integrated, because today, in the past, you had one platform. Today, you have lots of platforms, and that's okay. But there needs to be integration. Like you said, the different databases, the different platforms. If you do a booking here, it should also pop up somewhere else to not do things double. Yeah. And core facilities, sharing of equipment. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah. We see that already today. Yeah. That's where it's already happening. Huh? Okay. Thank you, David. And thank you also to the other panel members and speakers, because this is the end of our webinar. Thank you very much for attending, and hope to see you again next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice presentation.
It's a remote bottle of wine.
Coming to you, eh?